Hello, my name is Kris Lacy and I'm the ILS Performance Manager within the ILS Centre of Expertise, ILS COE, at the New Zealand Defence Force. I appreciate the opportunity to be involved with the ILS Symposium and I look forward to viewing the other presentations. In thinking about the theme of model capability that showcases the best of ILS, I've had to take some creative liberties in that statement. The reason for that will become apparent, but in a nutshell, the way we even do ILS has had to change. And as you'll hear by the end, I'm using our own unit as the capability and how ILS and our experience can showcase the best of ILS. So with that being said, the way I'm going to approach the presentation is to firstly give background on ILS and the NZDF and explain the approach taken then and the approach taken now. I'll go over what didn't work for the unit and more importantly, what has worked. I'll take you on a sort of chronological journey that the ILS COE has taken. Good points, bad points, successes, and share some lessons that may be useful to yourselves. It's about the measures we took and still take in order to rebuild bridges and ensure positive engagement with respect to ILS. I'm not going to talk about the benefits of ILS, the 10 elements, Laura, Famika, as I'm assuming most, if not all of the participants are experts in this field. Also, please bear in mind that I use the term ILS and not IPS. NZDF still uses ILS. We'll get to IPS eventually. Let's get into it. ILS as a tool was only formally taken up by the NZDF in 2006 under what was called the ILS Advisory Cell with just 2 staff. The focus for the ILS Advisory Cell was developing what would become ILS policy within the NZDF. ILS support to projects was more at a strategic level and focused on reinforcing policy and directing projects towards that, rather than providing practical and meaningful support or guidance. This is what we call an academic mindset, that being ILS support by means of enforcement of policy alone, no direct support. This mindset and approach, however, did not change and didn't for another 15 years. In NZDF culture, and I assume in any organisation, people don't take kindly to continuously being told what they are doing wrong, slapping their wrists and marking their homework without any practical support being offered or provided. The ILS COE and ILS as a tool were all but shut out. Into the new era. Now that I've painted that dark picture for you, we come to July 2019. The 2 original staff were able to recruit 2 ILS delivery and assurance managers, myself and 1 other, to provide the direct support to projects. Very quickly, we started observing firsthand not only the massive apprehension from projects to engage with the ILS COE, but also with complete reluctance to use ILS in general. We also noticed that the unit had no direction and that academic approach was still being adhered to, which we couldn't deviate from. Fortunately, in March 2021, a new ILS COE manager was employed, former New Zealand Army Colonel. He was a very well-respected leader, and as an added benefit, although we didn't realise this at the time, was that he did not have a background in ILS. And so began the new era for the ILS COE. With the new manager came direction and, most importantly, a new approach. The original staff were not overly receptive to this change and they eventually moved on. Plans were immediately put in place to explore what was going wrong and why. So what had gone wrong? Why wasn't ILS always taken up or the ILS COE engaged with? I'd like to say it boiled down to just 1 or 2 things, but after slowly turning over the rock and cautiously peering under, discovered many. There was negative history and poor association with the name ILS COE, personality differences and the approach taken when dealing with project teams focus on the shiny thing, lack of understanding of the purpose of ILS, poor quality training, feedback and advice to projects was in a highly condescending manner, so became avoided, an attitude of we know everything about ILS and you must comply, a culture of not wanting to change or seeing the need, lack of resource, misinterpretation of the logistics word in ILS as being focused on warehousing, spares, and transport focused, ILS and the ILS COE being viewed as a roadblock or merely a compliance function rather than something beneficial, negative culture, at times aggressively negative, and an inflexible, hard-nosed approach to ILS application. All this was where it had gone wrong for ILS use and engagement with the ILS COE. After subsequent discussions with our 5IS counterparts, what the unit has experienced for years is more or less nothing new to the world of ILS. Okay, so what? There are two parts to the application of ILS as far as we saw it. On one hand, you have ILS policy, processes, guidelines, frameworks, and standards, all that academics guff. On the other hand, you have your practical application. The NZDF had ILS policy, processes, guidance, and its own ILS framework. They weren't perfect, but they were adequate for the time being. So if we had these, but ILS application and engagement still wasn't being done, it must be to do with the practical application of ILS. We figured throwing ILS policy at people and telling them that it must be adhered to and where they are going wrong just does not work. It certainly doesn't fit within the NZ Defence culture. The mindset being that the ILS COE were there only to critique and advise accordingly. Not an overly supportive approach, we thought. What we realised was that while the policy/academic side of things is necessary as a foundation, it shouldn't be used as a mechanism to ensure ILS engagement and application is being conducted. A pragmatic approach was needed. If we can get the practical application piece sorted, once we start entering a period where ILS engagement and application becomes business as usual, only then will we start looking at improving processes and policy and a potential transition to IPS. The focus was ensuring ILS uptake not only improved, but became a matter of course. Practical application. Now that we had established that the practical application aspect is where our focus needs to be in order to improve the ILS engagement within the team, now what? There are so many aspects of practical application which were broken, it seemed quite daunting. So we broke it down into 5 focus area pillars. Those pillars being continuous improvement in marketing, engagement and resource, assurance, delivery, and training. So what did we do to improve each of these pillars? I'll go through and bullet point what we did. Pillar 1, assurance. This is the activity we undertake in reviewing ILS activity within a project and providing commander logistics that ILS and through-life support is being given appropriate consideration and development. Improvement activities included providing meaningful assurance. What this means is providing feedback from an ILS and through-life support perspective only. We don't comment on grammar, format, or intent. Doing so comes across as condescending and not particularly helpful. We're here to provide expert technical advice. Wordsmithing feedback. Given we're on tender hooks with many staff, we double check each other's feedback comments prior to submission, ensuring that it is worded in such a way that it will not be taken the wrong way. Sounds precious, yes, but we have bridges to repair. Pillar 2, delivery. This is the activity we undertake in the physical delivery, providing guidance, assistance, or creation of ILS or other documentation. For a start, ensuring that we deliver direct ILS support and not tell them to do it themselves. We also ensure we're responsive, effective, and helpful. And finally, produce good quality through life support guidance and advice and documentation. Pillar 3, training. This is the provision of ILS education and formal ILS training. Previous ILS courses would be upwards of 2 weeks long, or in the case of a certain 2-day intro course, was death by PowerPoint, over 600 slides. They were not relevant to NZDF and did not talk the NZDF language. So what we did, we developed a whole new training package that in this resource-constrained environment was relevant and realistic to NZDF and which takes a very collaborative approach to facilitation. No reliance on PowerPoint here. The new training was relevant that it uses recent or live NZDF capability acquisition projects as case studies. Project teams are even welcome to attend the end of course presentations. We established a matrix against positions within the capability branch, Ministry of Defence, and in-service support providers, so training is relevant according to position or role. We now actually have 98% positive feedback rating with our training, and over 4% of the NZDF have been through training. Good feedback training is also a good marketing tool. People are talking very positively about the training, which in turn gets people approaching us. We also don't force training that people will be unlikely to use. So we don't currently offer specific LoRa, Formica, or LSA courses, as most of the equipment we buy has already had this done. We don't tend to buy bespoke. We do appreciate the need to understand these, so we're investigating options to have this offered elsewhere. ILS governance training. A gap was identified that while ILS uptake was increasing and good word spreading, we were now at a stage where we needed support from up the chain. We're now developing an online instructional video for Colonel and equivalent level staff. It talks their language at their level. It will provide them with the necessary information to confidently interrogate project teams regarding status and direction with respect to ILS and through life support, as well as provide a robust set of discussion points and questions they can direct to project teams in order to ensure they have the assurance that through life support is being given due consideration. Pillar 4, continuous improvement and marketing. This includes developing a culture of change, as well as ensuring that both the ILS COE is known and ILS as a tool is understood. We use the principle that even the smallest change can help improve one of the aspects mentioned above. Every little bit helps. Each aspect of change must illustrate a stronger understanding of the benefits of ILS. We created a new handbook. The previous one was over a decade old. We created flyers, both hard copies and via the NZDF intranet, even ensuring that our auto signatures had links everywhere. We formalised a continuous improvement cycle. If someone in the team has an idea, it doesn't matter how obscure, big or small, we will always investigate it. As such, we're now all trained in the ProSci change management process. Pillar 5, engagement and resource. This is about how we engage and support our stakeholders and people. We accept that not every project is perfect and picking and choosing our battles. Different projects require different engagement. I look at personality traits as well as technical knowledge when assigning a team member to a project. If someone isn't as knowledgeable in an area, I will ensure that someone else is sitting with them, at least initially. I ensure we have feedback after the work is completed in addition. Due to some of the negative connotations with the name ILS, we have even gone as far as replacing it with through life support as far as practical during conversations with project teams. ILS, at the end of the day, is the tool for developing through life support. We're beginning to conduct mindset training, understanding what people tick and playing on strengths and weaknesses. We walk the floors to keep up appearances, not confining ourselves to the back rooms of the building. Finally, we do the work ourselves. So, apart from the 5 pillars I've mentioned, what else do we do? Do we focus on to improve practical application of ILS? Building of relationships. We try to become valuable to people. Be responsive and supportive. Be in a position to influence behaviour. See ILS as accepted, valuable and meaningful. Understand customer nuances. It's all relationship management. We also ingrain a whatever it takes mentality to support. Bend over backwards to support project staff. Another thing we can improve on is aspects of resource, people. As we're slowly able to build the team up to 6, we have now taken a different approach to recruitment. Ideally, yes, any candidates will have a background in ILS or at least experience in aspects of through life support or capability acquisition. However, during the recruitment process, we've made sure that they have other qualities. Very good at customer engagement, accommodating, supportive, always looking for change opportunities. We have found that you can be a wizard with ILS and understand ILS policy and standards back to front. But if you don't have these other soft skills or can't apply ILS from a practical sense, then you may not get much traction. We promote and expect personal development, that being leadership training, mediation training, change management, and upskilling in areas to do with capability acquisition and support. We created a new ILS services panel of contracts to support ILS acquisition and through life support activities. The previous ILS panel was purely ILS focused and not often utilised. The expectation also was again that projects do all the management and coordination of statements of work. With the new panel, we do it all to take the load off the projects. The new panel also has a much more broad focus: ILS, organisational development, project management, engineering, document writing. If it touches through life support or capability acquisition in any way, we can use the panel. We're very meticulous in the statements of work we offer, listening to panelists, being open to adapt and improve, offering training to them, maintaining relationships, and hosting an annual get-together where we present and have a catch-up. We also send out ad hoc indicative timelines for a potential work to allow panelists time to prepare. With respect to those statements of work, after we have evaluated the technical merits of a supplier from a statement of work response, we will also do a team fit check with the project. By doing all this, we're trying to make a change in culture. People are naturally drawn towards the big shiny thing. I would as well. There isn't much exciting about the support system, but the capability isn't going to be very useful if there are no support measures in place. We take an understanding attitude. Be prepared to compromise, especially if it is with a stakeholder that is notoriously difficult to deal with. Changing culture is not something we expected to be able to change overnight. It's an organisational change after all. Although a lot of what I have said appears to be a very soft approach, we do have capacity to use the stick. This is obviously a last resort. However, where we have identified significant through-life support or ILS risk that we're unable to address for whatever reason, we can go up the chain of command accordingly. An ILS community of practice. We're in the initial stages of developing an ILS community of practice as a sharing and collaboration space to facilitate discussion and provide assistance to other ILS practitioners. Brokerage and moderation. The aforementioned approach we're taking on improving business relationships and ILS engagement has been such a roaring success that we've had personnel from other units completely removed from ILS approach us requesting assistance in engaging with projects. As very much the middleman between acquisition and in-service, we've decided to begin the formalisation of a brokerage/moderation service in an effort to generate meaningful two-way engagement. When we ran this by our director, his response was along the lines of, "You haven't done this yet?" IPS. Although we're not quite ready yet, IPS is now on our radar. The reason we're not making the change yet is that we're still rebuilding how we operate, and when we get to a point where ILS has become ingrained in culture, then we'll take the leap. Too early and it will be confusing to the masses and potentially undo what we've accomplished so far. So where to from here? We do still have a way to go, but the groundwork is done and ILS uptake and ILS COE engagement has improved no end. We're now entering a period of business as usual in terms of the practical application of ILS. The changes to approach are now more or less embedded in our psyche. We're now in a position where we can start working on the academic side of things, such as reworking our decades-old ILS framework and ILS artifacts to suit current times and make them less resource heavy and easier to follow. In addition, we're drafting up a process that converts ILS thinking into measurable support requirements that is easier for vendors to interpret, and thus we can easily measure what we will end up getting or not end up getting in terms of support. We have also made significant progress on work in the information domain, an area not typically associated with ILS. We employed an external SME through our ILS panel to evaluate and report on the benefits and application of ILS in an area of non-hardware focused projects such as cybersecurity, software upgrades, etc. We now have a set of through-life support considerations using ILS where we can apply to these projects, NZDF IT staff now even see the benefit. In summary, what we have managed to accomplish in 3 years has been fantastic. Improvements in the practical application of ILS has meant project teams in the wider NZDF are now not only becoming very willing to engage, but continuously approaching us, asking for ILS and through life support assistance. Previously, this was unheard of. Not only this, they ask us for assistance in other areas such as capability acquisition and problem solving. People are talking and doing ILS. Now, there is a theme here. It's about people. So this was our model capability. ILS is a tool and doesn't significantly change. Successful use of ILS requires successful support and engagement through people. Thank you for bearing with me, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If there is one takeaway from this, it would be our behaviour changes their culture. Thank you.